Hitman Absolution is one of the most underrated games in the franchise, and that's especially true when you find this hidden Easter egg. During the end of the road mission, your objective is pretty simple. Here's a guy you kidnapped, now take him out. Fair enough, you are a hitman after all, but what if you suddenly decide that this random vulture is your target instead? That's an insane way to die, but what happens to the people in Cyberpunk after they've passed away? Pretty random question, but the answer behind it is actually amazing. At funerals, instead of a picture, they have the entire hologram of the person who died. Already super sweet? Well, that's unless you have hacking abilities. Any hacker could just break into someone's funeral, change the hologram, and suddenly their deceased family member is now a little too excited.
Daddy?
And things get really strange in Gears of War Judgment. While playing the Aftermath campaign, there's a side door you can go through that'll eventually lead you to this balcony. You're rewarded with a sniper and most people would turn back, but this weapon's here for a reason. If you use it to look into the distance, there's a dude just chilling up here, but shoot him and it turns out he's actually friendly.
Huh. You don't see that every day.
And that's not the only time a game surprised us. In Saints Row, there's plenty of weird Easter eggs, but none of them are as random as this bush. Now, what could be so unusual about a regular old bush, you might ask? Well, let me just unmute the video.
Oh my darling Clementine.
Turns out this singing is a reference to the Three Amigos, and if you were wondering why it's so annoying, the movie has an ongoing joke about how it won't shut up.
Hello? Hi.
And while that's pretty strange, it's nothing compared to someone who famously came back to life. You can find them in Goat Simulator 3 by walking up to this rock. Now, there's not much you can do to this thing as a goat except for bat it, but of course that's what opens it up. Well, great job. You've now just entered the tomb of... And now you can officially run around as him. Although you should really pay attention in Crysis 3. It's not exactly known for its comedy, yet at one point in the game, there's an alien who walks in front of this dumpster. If you've been stealthy up until this point, you'll now get the option to power kick it straight into him.
That's how you do it.
This is the only time you get a round of applause in the entire game, and I'm just wondering where the live studio audience came from. Taking it back to Hitman Absolution, it's not often you get to eliminate your target with a nuclear bomb. But in the Dexter's Laboratory mission, they have one hanging right from the ceiling. Now, most players would assume it's a decoration or that it was disarmed years ago, but Agent 47 contests that theory. I just love when developers put these tiny secrets into games, and that's why Sea of Thieves is so incredible. There's a chance you'll come across this island with a skeleton named Griffin who's just laying here trying to eat a banana. Obviously, that's a pretty strange way to eat one, but if you pull it out for yourself and try it, they actually do eat bananas this way. Now, one of the developers thought this was so ridiculous that during an interview, he decided to make fun of the animation.
Press conference thing of E3. Are you okay? It's so bad.
If you hadn't already guessed, his name is Griffin, and now this moment is immortalized in-game forever. But imagine getting home after a long day, only to check your voicemail and realize there's a missed call from Mario. Yeah, if you ever bought from GameStop back in the day, you probably picked up Mario Galaxy, and for anyone who pre-ordered it 24 hours before release, they'd actually get a special call from Mario himself.
Hello, it's me, Mario. Woohoo! And I'ma call you because I'm here at the GameStop where they telling me that you pre-ordered my newest and the greatest game, Super Mario Galaxy. Woohoo!
Taking it from Nintendo to Lego, the details inside of these games is super impressive. Every single character always has their own personality and charm, and that's especially true for the Incredible Hulk. So in Lego Marvel Superheroes 2, if you go AFK while playing as him, he'll get impatient and eventually take it out on a poor chicken. And Dying Light 2 has one of the funniest Easter eggs, and it actually roasts another developer. There's a secret quest where you talk to a guy named the Liquidator, and everything he says seems to be pretty important. Well, that's until you end the convo, and he gives you a blueprint for Cyberhands 2177. This is a direct reference to Cyberpunk, and when you turn back, he's now disappeared, a subtle jab at the game's constant despawning of NPCs. And that's not the only time two franchises have come together. One of the most iconic rivalries in gaming is Spyro the Dragon versus Crash Bandicoot. So naturally in the Eternal Night, it's pretty funny when you explore a level only to find Crash frozen under the ice. If there is one game that makes fun of everyone though, it's gotta be Goat Simulator. In the original, if you walked into the coffee stain house, you could head up the stairs and find a secret minigame on the TV. But be careful, because once you start playing, it'll either drive you insane or become super addictive. Of course, it's Flappy Bird, or at least the goat version of it. Not only is this set in space, but it is way harder than the original. If you get just 10 points, you'll earn the Flatmaster achievement, which is known as one of the most infuriating trophies in the whole franchise. If you decide to take out your anger on a chicken instead, like Lego Hulk, make sure you don't do it in Scooby-Doo. The Spooky Swamp game is pretty old by now, but that didn't stop the devs from adding some amazing secrets. If you decide to attack an innocent chicken, they won't just sit there, they'll get revenge. You could also fight an animal secret in Tekken Tag Tournament 2 if you head bottom left of the historic town square. Once you're here, try to stick around long enough, and a group of dancing animals will come around the corner. Honestly, this has got to be one of the most adorable things I've ever seen. Moving on to a more serious franchise, Life is Strange has a gripping story. Well, except when there's an opportunity for some Easter eggs, and let's just say the devs always take it. As you approach this door, there's a code puzzle which could eventually be solved. For any lazy players who want to break through, they could just sit here trying to guess the code all day, but once you failed it 50 times, even Max gets frustrated.
I'm going to make the designers pay for all these bull code puzzles.
In Gears of War 5 on the Asylum multiplayer map, there's trains that come through here and tear people apart. Well, that's unless you're skilled enough to dodge it at the very last second. Now, this is already pretty thrilling, but do this to both trains on the map, and the next time it drives through, Cole will be dancing. Now, if there's someone who appears all the time as an Easter egg, it's Indiana Jones. Whether it's Fortnite or Warzone, his refrigerator's iconic. But in Far Cry New Dawn, they didn't follow the movies. He's usually meant to survive the atomic blast, except when you visit this fridge, all that's left is some bones and his famous hat. Now let's move on to Steep, which is one of Ubisoft's most underrated games. It may seem like a simple snowboarding game, but it's actually full of passion from the developers. And if I've learned anything from making these videos, Ubisoft will put rabbits in everything no matter what. Speaking of passionate devs, the team behind Fable put a ton of love into the game. That's why the Easter eggs are so good, and one of the best involves this door puzzle. You need to spell out the word hits in order to gain access, but they set you up perfectly here to spell something much worse.
S-H-I-D.
Someone who never shies away from cursing is Peter Griffin, and in his PS2 game, Quahog is full of secrets. Like God, who is not happy if you get in his way, because if you interrupt him, Peter will instantly regret it.
Smite you!
A more lighthearted secret can be found in Ultrakill, or so we thought. If you manage to get inside the chimneys on the boat, you'll find a small hamster waiting for you. He is super adorable, so obviously you gotta escort him to safety, and that means heading to this giant tower. Once you reach the very top, the game's developer is trapped inside a cage. He definitely seems like the hamster's owner, so I wasn't expecting this when reuniting them. Now, you probably haven't heard of Hedon Bloodrite. It's an indie shooter created by one person who was inspired by retro games like Doom. But you could also tell who else influenced him by simply falling down this hole.
What the hell am I doing in Hedon? This is a low-budget game.
Got him!
Duke Nukem is one thing, but Postal takes this humor to another level, especially in the second game. One of my personal favorites is in the cemetery. There's a huge grave for that beloved bookcase. Now, surely they didn't bury an actual bookcase, right? Well, just pee on the grave and you'll be in for a super weird surprise.
How about some of this?
Ow. A game that hasn't even dropped yet is Payday 3, and somehow, players are already finding secrets. As you spawn into the very first heist, you can turn around and notice something on the wall. There is a ton of posters with a garage for sale, rooms for rent, and even a missing cat. But I am way more interested in the QR code that says follow your dream with a mysterious smiley face. I was dying to see where this went, so I just had to scan it. Oh, well, okay then. And those were 25 secrets in video games. It's been Sammy. Keep it here on T5G.